All right. Hello, everyone. Charles and I are back with another video, this time covering the CoE Starter Kit Dashboards. Charles, how are you today?
Fantastic, Garrett. Looking forward to
Yeah.
this one. I've got a lot of questions about this. I think in our
Yeah.
last session we talked about COE, kind of at a high level, right?
hmm
Just kind of took a drive by and said, "Hey, there's a bunch of stuff, and it's good for admins and it's good for devs." But it's time to really dig in, right? Talk about how we
Yeah.
make that, how we actually put that to work. It's got a lot of data, but how are we supposed to interact with it? What are the
hmm
ways that we're supposed to get something out of this stuff? I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the last one, I kind of showed the setup wizard, which is kind of your jumping off point for getting
Yeah.
things started with the CoE Starter Kit. And as I stated in that video, there's a bunch of flows in the CoE Starter Kit that gather data from all your environments. But you're probably wondering, well, what in the world can I do with all the data that's gathered? And the answer is these Power BI dashboards. So these are things that the CoE Starter Kit, the PowerCat team built out to help people who are administrating Power Platform workloads to or have a better overview of their things. So we got two main dashboards that we're working with. We've got the production dashboard and the governance dashboard. And there's an article out there on, I believe it's platformsofpower.net, Craig White's blog, and he talks with Michael Roth in one of those. And both of those are Microsoft MVPs who are
Yeah,
big
those
in
are
the
big
governance
names.
space.
Yeah, those are
Yeah,
big names.
exactly. So we can link to that article here. It was pretty useful in getting this video together. But Michael Roth defines the differences the product or a difference between the production and governance dashboards as the production dashboard helps you define your strategy and processes for the future, and the governance dashboard is cleaning up messes from the past. So yeah, that'll brings us to our start here with the production dashboard. Charles, any starting off questions there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what we're trying to do here with these videos is talk about, what this all means for pro devs, who find
hmm
themselves in the position of administration. It's kind of
Yeah.
a big surprise that we're out in Power BI instead of in an app, right? You kind of expect a lot of the other stuff in COE exists in a model-driven app or in a Canvas app. And this
Yeah.
one instead is out in Power BI. What's the big draw, do you think? What do you think is the main reason why they decided to do this one over in Power BI?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of these are just data visualizations, and
Mm.
so that becomes much, much easier in Power BI. And it's also just cool to use Power BI. I feel like it's an underrated feature in the Power Platform. So I like that it's built in Power BI.
Oh, that's awesome. All right,
Yeah,
so let's dig in a little bit. You said,
yeah,
production dashboard, governance dashboard. We'll start with the production, right, which is
yep,
what's going on in my environment today, and as opposed to how do I clean up the mess that already exists, right? I
hmm
think you were
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
So let's talk about what's
exactly.
going on in my environment today. What's in
Yeah,
here?
yeah. So you got this introductory slide or screen, which shows you all the different stuff that you can click on into. These are all clickable buttons that'll take you into different pages. So you can see we've got things like Power Apps, SharePoint Apps, Power Automate environments, and then you got things over here for makers, and you got things over here for various governance needs. And yeah, it kind of has descriptors here of what you might want to do. So it'll, these monitoring components take inventory, these governing components do risk assessments, and these nurturing components help you to see who's using what, basically. So um, we might as well just dive right in. We'll take a look at each thing individually here. So um, starting off, we've got the view of the Power Apps, which shows you all kinds of stuff related to the apps. So it tells you like number of apps you've got for Canvas apps, model-driven apps. Shows you your top makers and the environments that have the most apps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Any questions about that?
No, this is pretty good at a glance, right? So we
Yeah.
can see are there messes out there. Um, okay, good. So we get an idea of here are all the environments we've got and the number of apps.
hmm
This at least, I guess, it helps me to identify, where my focus areas are. But a lot of this
Yeah.
should be intuitive, right? I'll know that I've got a main production environment that's got 45 apps. I'm gonna have an idea of that already.
Right.
And this is just sort of the confirmation of that information and letting me know if
Hmm.
something has changed, right? If something else is going on, if I'm in a very large enterprise, there are
Yeah.
dev projects I don't know about. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. And then if you don't have anything under a certain category, it just shows up as blank right here. So you can see
Yeah.
we don't really have much going on with SharePoint in our organization. So yeah.
It's the friendly
Um,
version of a nullity ref.
yes, exactly. We've also got the same thing for Power Automate flows. You can see environments by flow count and then top flow makers.
Yeah. This is good.
My
This starts to get you into more value add, right? Apps you kind of
exactly.
have a gut feeling on already, but where are
Hmm.
my flows? That's
Yeah, it's much harder to see your flows and make sense of them visually. So this helps you do that, which is nice.
okay. Awesome.
Um, then we got the same thing over here for Power Virtual Agents.
Mm-hmm.
Environments by bot count and then bot makers. So yeah, but the biggest thing that we get into is stuff with
And
our
okay.
environments. Go ahead.
I was just going to say about those power virtual agents, right? Since the sort of the sunsetting of that terminology, and we moved on to, the co-pilots. This is inclusive of your co-pilots, right? It's not just old
Yeah,
school bots, right? This is
yeah,
co-pilots
and
now.
I think they're gonna start probably shifting the terminology here in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit of an older install, maybe like a month or two. I don't know if they put out this month's update yet, but yeah, which is bad governance of me. You want to keep on top of the updates for the CoE Starter Kit, so I
That's
should
right.
I should make sure that I'm on top of that. So we'll jump here into the environment slide. You can see that we've got a bunch of things going on. You'll see environment creation trends. We are at peak environment creation right now. You can see see kind of when our organization got started. Um, and then yeah, you can also see environments by type and environments by creator. And then apps and flows per environment. You'll see that the CoE Starter Kit demo environment that we have is way out of proportion because that's where all of the CoE Starter Kit stuff sits, and that's as we talked about, a group of apps and flows that all comes together to hand you this data. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, this is good. Starts to give you
yeah,
that holistic picture. I think of this as like kind of like an executive report, right?
yeah, exactly. It's supposed to
You're
be that kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been asked, as a pro dev, you've been asked to help start locking things down.
Hmm.
Some leadership member has asked you, all right, give me an idea. How many apps we got? How many flows we got? Where are all
Yeah.
of our environments? What's the storage consumption out there? And this is where you would go to get that high level picture.
Yeah, and it's really useful for when you're trying to develop an environment strategy as well, which is actually I think the next video we have in our sequence here.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking forward
this
to that.
we'll probably be coming back to this here in the near future. We'll also jump ahead and show there's easy visualizations of maker activity. So we've
Hmm.
got you know all the COE starter kit apps are registered under my name. But yeah, so you see Charles and I are a little bit busy over here, and you know, Dataverse and the system have also been active. So yeah, but this will be pretty useful if you have like a whole group of people going at it on creating flows and apps and that kind of thing. It helps you
Hmm.
to see who's the most active, and if somebody's way out of proportion, maybe it's time to have a chat with that person and see what they're doing
Right.
and see if there's opportunities for consolidation or anything. So
Right. This is when we get
yeah,
into that nurture content, right? We've got,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
we're pro developers. We only actually see so much of the world of Power Platform that's going on in the enterprise, right? There
yeah.
could be makers out there making a ton of Canvas apps in SharePoint that they're tossing into Teams or something like that, and they never had to ask anyone's permission, right? They're
Hmm.
using a free license, and they
Right.
didn't know that they were supposed to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I'm doing this."
Hmm.
It just became available. This is how we find out about that person and
Yeah.
encourage them, right? I mean, I think most of the time you don't want to stop that person. You want to give them better tools, right? You want to tell them,
Exactly.
hey, what
Yeah.
you're doing is fantastic. You should also consider Dataverse. You should also
Yeah.
consider apps like this. Maybe we can help you with custom components, right? As a pro
Yeah.
dev, when you find that person that's out there that you didn't know, that Jane Doe shows up, and Jane Doe has made 12 apps in the last month and has
Hmm.
made 42 flows. Well, I better go talk to Jane because Jane might be a really important resource for me here in the
Yeah.
enterprise.
Exactly. Should be a pretty valuable asset in the organization. Yeah. So we'll jump ahead. We got environment capacity. I know this is consistently
Oh, yeah.
something that we're worried about. So this will give you a
That's
very quick
right.
overview of where your consumption is and top environments by capacity, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and this is
Um,
sliceable. Unlike going into the admin portal, in the admin portal,
yeah,
we can slice this. We can report on it in different ways. Maybe we can start to attribute consumption to specific areas of the business, right? If there
yeah,
are, if our licensing has to be shared, right, and we're trying to attribute, all right, business unit A is using more storage than they're supposed to. This would be how we'd start to get there, right?
hmm yes, exactly. And I know that in the past, Charles, we have had many a headache involving
Oh my
capacity.
gosh.
So
Oh yes.
you can, yeah, and sometimes you don't know that those issues are presenting themselves until they actually you hit that capacity limit. So yeah, this is very, very useful for preempting those sorts of things. So yeah. Um, Jumping ahead, we've got Teams environments, which we don't really use Teams environments in our organization very much. So we can, but it's a lot of the same. Um, shows you all your numbers, creation trends, and details.
Yeah, I think Dataverse
Um,
for Teams is kind of it's still a useful tool. It's still that way that
yeah,
Jane Doe or whomever is able to spin up their free apps, right? And that still
exactly.
makes them incredibly valuable. But I think they get a
Yeah.
lot less emphasis these days.
hmm and then we can jump ahead, look at this will kind of be very similar. You can see over on the sidebar, we've got apps, we've got cloud flows, custom connectors, desktop flows, bots, all those sorts of things. So you can see a lot of the same stuff is presented for all of those. In the interest of time, we won't go over every single thing, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can see that we've got just a view of like our connectors used in apps, which is very, very important. So you want to keep an eye on the connectors that your organization is using and
Right.
see, catch if there's any spots where data might be leaking to places where it shouldn't be, or data coming in might be, from an odd source or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And there
it's very,
and
very
new
useful.
connectors get introduced, right? Seeing a list of
Exactly.
these things that helps you stay up on top of that.
hmm
You built your DLP policies 6 months ago, and now a new connector's been introduced, and you didn't realize it.
Yeah,
This would be a
you
good
got
way
to
to
do
keep it on
something
top
about
of
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we'll jump ahead. We'll go to the app deep dive here and show you. So this is kind of fun. You got all sorts of apps here. Apps by name, the number of people it's been shared with, people who are editing it,
Yeah.
which environment it sits in, its ID, and who owns it. So if you've got a question about a specific app, this is the place you'd want to go to. And I think it even has, yeah, links to the actual apps here, which is kind of cool. So it'll take you directly there.
Mm-hmm.
That one appears to be taking a minute to load, but yeah. So, or actually, it brings you to the detail screen, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
That's
there you
great.
go.
That's great.
Yeah.
So this is where you might get a sense of that grassroots success and
hmm
risk, right? They're one and the same, two sides of the same coin. There, when there's
Exactly.
grassroots success, there's also grassroots risk for these apps and the data that's being stored in them, and
hmm
business criticality of that information and that process. This is where
Yeah.
you could start to find out, hey, there's an app out there that out of nowhere, right, just started. It's been shared with 40 people.
hmm
Well, why? Why has it been
Why?
shared with all
Yeah.
those people? Is it doing something really important that we should be aware of? That kind of
hmm
question. That's great.
Yeah. And you got the same thing right here for flows.
Mhm.
And it's got, you know, action counts, number of times it's been run, if it's running right now, or if it's or what state it's in, if it's on or off,
It's cool.
which
What's that?
environment
Do
it's
you know what
in.
that archive score is? I don't even know. I don't know what that is.
I think that's a measure of like activity
Oh, okay.
and whether or not that is like whether or not it thinks that it could be archived or not. So like maybe that flow hasn't run in a while. And if it hasn't run in a while, then maybe it'll say, oh, we can take another look at this and see if it can be dumped. So yeah. I've also got connector usage here. This is very useful. So you can actually see which app is using this. I think this is scrollable, but maybe it's not. Um, yeah, you can see environment. What's I
Hmm.
guess this is what's highest in connector usage. You can also filter down a little bit more if you needed to, and yeah, by owner, that kind of thing. So yeah, this is fun. Same thing with app usage. Oh, sorry, no, I gotta correct myself. This is, I think, who which apps are using which or who created something with a connector. I think, yeah,
Okay.
is what this is measuring. Sorry. And app usage. You can check in over here and see all the different app launches, app details, that sort of thing. And then yeah, we've got that's kind of the gist of the production dashboard. It's the most
Mm-hmm.
important stuff that you'll be using. So,
This is good. So it gives you a detailed breakdown of what's, like you said at the beginning, what's going on in your environment today, right? And
hmm
that's, you know, there are all kinds of reasons why you're going to want to ask that question of yourself and to check on this regularly to see have there been updates I didn't expect.
hmm
This seems like a really valuable resource for keeping your sort of finger on the pulse of what's happening in that deployment.
absolutely.
As a pro dev, you don't know everything. You're not connected with the entire business. All you've got is a set of tools for monitoring, and this is a great way to keep to maximize the visibility that you get.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so with that, it's a good transition over to the governance dashboard,
Right, right.
which yeah provides a bunch of visibility into the Power Platform workload, a little more granular. And so yeah, any questions starting off there, Charles?
Yeah, so this you think you described it in the beginning as this is where you go to start cleaning up the problems that exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first
Yep,
one's where
yep.
you go to make sure that there are no problems or to see if anything has changed, right? This is where you go to start cleaning things up. So help me understand, how does this help me to identify issues? I see a summary dashboard with a whole lot of blanks, which I'm guessing is good.
Yeah.
What are some of these things like apps not launched in the last month? What am I supposed to do about those?
Yeah, if you're seeing blanks on this, it actually means that you're in pretty good shape. So, um, yeah, you'll see like apps with no owners, as in like an orphaned app. You don't want to have an app with no owner because then
Mm-hmm.
nobody's, you don't know who's responsible for it if something's going wrong with it. So, yeah, you want to jump on that. Similarly, like non-compliant apps, if things are outside of your DLP bounds or something like that, you'll want to go ahead and address that. That's what all these categories are. They're things that may lead to problems, and it kind of helps you to head them off before it gets too out of control. Similarly, we've got yeah, apps not launched in the last month. So like, hey, if that app is falling out of usage, then maybe we need to have a conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's yeah, and we've got it gives us some idea over here in the adoption insights of what's been going on, what are the connectors that are most used, and what's going on, like who's using what and how are they using it, can be seen here. So you can see Dataverse is our top used connector, which is no surprise there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if maybe there's like if something shows up under here that you're unfamiliar with, that's something you ought to look into. So
Right.
yeah,
If an Oracle connector shows up here, you might go, wait,
exactly.
why
Yeah,
is
why
that
are we
getting
using
so much
Oracle?
use?
Yeah,
Why is that getting so much? What's going on?
yeah. And then so I guess there's probably a big question we have, which is how is this going to help us manage the default environment? Because the default environment is kind of the enemy of good
Yes.
governance. So
Uh,
there's a whole tab here for the default environment actually, and that's again like we've got a bunch of blank stuff here, so everything's looking pretty good. But yeah,
I like that. I like it's called default environment tech debt. Just the sort of
exactly,
the
yeah.
underlying assumption that if you've got a whole
hmm
bunch of stuff happening in default environment, that's technical debt. That's something that you really
Yeah,
ought to remediate. You should be pulling it out and putting it into a dedicated environment where you can manage that data. You can keep it secure. That's good.
exactly, yeah. So it tells you what's going on in your default environment, where there might be problems or rooms for growth there.
Mm-hmm.
As we've talked about before, the default environment, you don't want stuff to be happening there all that much. Like maybe people can begin there, but
Right.
you don't want stuff that is, in production or high usage running there. So yeah, this is where you'll start to see, if there were apps that were being heavily used in your default environment, it would show up right here, and you'd be able to say, oh, that might be a problem if we've got people, we've got 100 unique users using an app in a
Right.
default environment, then
Then we've got an issue.
there's
Then we have an issue.
conversations that need to be had. Yeah.
Exactly. Or the shares are starting to spike.
hmm
Maybe that's an indication that the data being stored in there is of rising business criticality, right? In which
Exactly.
case we don't want it in there. We want it in a dedicated environment where we can manage backups, where we can, restore it, where we can govern it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So we can jump to the app details page. This is similar to what we saw over on the other dashboard, but
Hmm.
it shows you a little bit more like
But now we're looking
DLP
at
policies
compliance and
violated.
DLP
Yeah,
and
exactly.
quarantine. Okay.
Yeah, so this, gives you a high level overview of all your apps and where they might be in terms of your compliance
So
boundaries.
this is where I would come to monitor it. Is this also where I would go to make changes? Like I want to. I've decided that this app is an issue, and I want to quarantine it. Right? Where would I
Yeah,
go
I
in
think
order
you
to start to
can,
do that?
yeah, you can jump over to the Power Platform Admin Center, I
Ah,
believe,
so I
which
can
there's
just
a
do it from the link right there.
link right
Okay.
there. And I
So now I
think
want
it
to
should
take
open up.
action. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It takes a little while, but um, yeah, you can start to see. I think this is a yeah mail to person. So yeah, it collects the owner's email and will send you over there, and you can open it as a mail to that person.
Hmm.
Jump back, see if this is loaded up yet.
So those are our quick actions there, right? We've identified
Yeah,
there might be an
exactly.
issue
That's the
here. We're either going
right.
to go to admin center and deal with it, or we're going to email the owner and have them
Yeah,
deal with it.
yeah. So forgive me. This is actually the admin center for the specific environment where the thing was
Hmm.
created, but from here you can dive in and find the stuff that you need. So, um, similarly, we've got flow details, the same sort of
Hmm.
thing. Got your environment link here, you got your creator and their email here. So yeah, you can look through anything you might need here.
Yeah, it's supposed. It
And
looks like the state shows started and not started, so you can also look at flows that are turned off. That'd be an interesting
yeah,
one here
and
that you can start to get.
suspended,
Hmm.
stopped. Yeah, we've got statuses like that. So we might actually want to check into this sync flow errors flow here. Shouldn't be suspended. So yeah, we got flow action details. Similarly, if there's if you've set actions within your, well, I guess you build flows as a collection of actions, right? And so it'll tell you, hey, this action may have had a problem, or it's working, or that kind of thing. And so yeah, can tell you a lot about the individual things that are going on in your flows and whether or not those are all right or if they're
Yeah.
having a problem. So,
If you
um,
start seeing a lot of flow failures, maybe this would be where you go to see is there a
yeah,
specific action type that's failing widely, that I can
exactly.
focus on without having to dig into each individual flow. Can I look here at
Hmm.
the action types? Pretty cool.
Yeah, you can start seeing spots where things might be
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
Now we're definitely getting to the pro dev management side, right? Where we
Hmm.
have like, faster triage, faster issue handling, debugging,
Right.
support. This is critical situation handling at its best.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we got environment details over here, which is, just kind of your high level overview of environments again and links to the admin center for that environment. Then whether or not it has Dataverse and what type of environment it is. So
Hmm.
yeah, connection details, pretty similar. We've got, what sort of connections are we using, where are they being used, what environment, their name, and what
This is
service
good.
account they're using. So actually, we need to start using service accounts, Charles, when we make stuff here. So um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean this
but
this is hugely important, right? This is a problem that especially larger deployments tend to run into. You get a whole bunch of
mhm,
developers that are working on, in a dev environment, right? And they're
yeah,
setting up connections and everything works in dev, so passes all the tests, but they're creating all
right,
these things under their own identity, and that is not the way we want to do it, right? We want to start to
no,
consolidate these things. You wind up with 30 or 40 or 50 Dataverse connections, all
mhm,
using G Pearson, C Shannon, and JDoe, right?
yeah,
And this is not how you build something scalable. Going in, being able to go in here and see, oh shoot, I've got 700 connections. Maybe
yeah,
we better start to lock that down. This is going to
right,
become difficult to manage.
yeah. Because I mean, with connections, yeah, like you can have one that's shared, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
it's maybe start thinking about that, and maybe you and I should start thinking about that too. Uh, yeah, then we can jump over to user details, which we don't really have a lot going on in the user details in our organization. But I think
Hmm.
like if you have users that are launching apps, this is where it would show up.
These are the
And then
registered ones in like the Maker portal and so on, like the
mhm,
COE
believe
creates
so.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, connector details, so we can see the connectors and which
Mm-hmm.
what
Environments
they're
are set
doing
up
here.
for.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've got this is actually a custom connector that I built, so you can see that it taps into the Microsoft Graph API, and yeah. So that's what we got for the dashboards here. And we're yeah about done for today.
Okay. Well, this is a good another like deeper dive, right? We talked
Yeah.
about the high level components. Now we get into like the visibility side of the
Yep.
COE and why it's relevant for pro devs. And I think
Hmm.
that's fantastic. This is
Yeah.
we go back to the let's take it back to why are we doing this, right? Pro developers have been put into a position of needing to handle more and more and more administrative responsibilities in the platform as it keeps
Right.
getting more complicated, right? And you need more specialized technical skills and understanding of the platform in order to be able to interpret the admin information.
Hmm.
An admin who is not a pro dev might have a really hard time interpreting the flow errors versus the flow action errors, right? Somebody who is
Yeah.
actually a professional, in the Power Platform is going to be much better equipped to do that. And this is how you can start to hand tools to the professional developer that let them take on some of those administrative responsibilities without giving up their role as a developer, right? You don't have to ask a developer to become a full-time admin. You can say,
Hmm.
here are some tools that can start to help you contribute to that administrative
Yeah.
responsibility. And that's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. Just I mean, there are tools out there to make your job easier if you have to administer this sort of stuff. And yeah, you're not the only one who's probably had the problems that you're having. So yeah,
Mm.
this is where to find those things. So
Yeah, I can already
yeah.
start to imagine some of the ways we're going to put this to use. You think you mentioned the next topic? One of the next topics we're going to be getting into is environment strategy. That's near
Yeah.
and dear to my heart. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this are thinking the same thing, right? Environment strategy matters, and getting
Yeah.
it right up front matters. I'm really excited to see how we approach that.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said on that topic. So I'm very excited to be doing that video, and hopefully I'll be getting that out next week. So
All
that's the
right, good
plan.
stuff.
All right.
Well, thank you, Garrett. Thank you so much for walking us through this. And we'll
Sure
talk
thing.
again soon.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.